Tonight on Kpbs Evening Edition, Mayor Kevin Faulconer unveils his $4 billion budget proposal.
We are saying yes to more housing.
Housing isn't all the mayor is hoping to improve, what he's planning for the city. Plus, the San Diego fleet might be done, but their financial debt is not, who the team still owes. And marijuana might be legal in California, but it's still illegal under federal law, which is affecting cannabis business in the state. Now lawmakers want to change that. Kpbs Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Thursday, April 11th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A major investment in San Diego's infrastructure. Mayor Kevin Faulconer releases his latest budget proposal. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it represents more than $4 billion of spending.
Faulkner made his budget announcement on the roof of Alpha Square in the East Village. Now, this is a permanent supportive housing project for people exiting homelessness. Faulkner's budget continues funding for city homeless programs, including the mayor's bridge shelters.
We are saying yes to more housing.
Some city council members have been wary of putting more money into those shelters, but are also reluctant to shut them down. Faulkner is facing a tough budget year with rising pension costs and less than stellar growth in tax revenues. But he says the core city services people rely on won't be impacted too much.
We're keeping library and park hours at the highest level in a decade. And we're funding operations for new libraries at Mission Hills and San Ysidro.
For the second year in a row, the mayor has boasted the largest infrastructure budget in city history. More than half of that money is earmarked for the city's costly water recycling program, Pure Water. Buildings, parks, and transportation spending represent just 16% of the infrastructure budget. And then there's police. Chief David Nislight says the department is still short nearly 200 officers and will have to make up for that shortage with more overtime pay.
We're going to see some increases in overtime, and we're obviously trying to control that. But the biggest thing is I'm trying to maintain public safety, and this is the largest safe city in the nation. And so to do that, sometimes we're going to have to use backfill overtime to fill those critical positions.
Last month, a court of appeal ordered San Diego to make back payments to employees who lost out on pension benefits because of a 2012 ballot measure that violated state law. It's unclear how much the court order will cost taxpayers, but it likely will not be cheap. The mayor has not budgeted any money for complying with that ruling. Now, over the next several weeks, the city council will be combing through the mayor's proposed budget department by department. The mayor presents a revised spending plan in May. The city council casts a final vote in June. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The city council is making it easier for people to weigh in on the spending plan. It's set to hold budget review meetings May 1st and May 13th. Its season may have been cut, but the San Diego Fleet football team might still have business in the city. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke with a local business owner who says he hasn't been paid for working with the team.
IQ Graphics is a locally owned business here in San Diego, and they did a number of projects for the fleet, ranging from stadium signage to things like thank you cards.
Their schedule, we did all their schedule stuff. We did small pocket signage that is like they just give out to people with the roster and the league information, all that stuff that comes with it. So we did a lot of marketing, but not just, and just also signage a lot.
Amir Rezai and his father have been running IQ Graphics since 1996. They create posters, banners, flyers, and business cards out of their small shop. IQ Graphics was excited when the San Diego Fleet football team reached out to them for business last October.
I said, great, let's work together.
It started off with some small projects, then came orders for signage around SDCCU Stadium.
Signage is when everything changed. Signage was when we did a lot of, directional signs to, the rules and regulations of the league, the uniform guidelines, and for home teams and away team.
The team paid for its early orders, but as the work began increasing, the payments stopped coming.
End of February, beginning of March, that's when I started getting a little worried. But the work was still coming in, and it was still getting, text messages and emails saying that it was being taken care of, and we're just waiting for account payable to pay off. So we didn't really think anything of it. And worse would have come to worse is that, past 30 days, 40 days, 30 days, 60 days, we just, send a letter out and usually would come back to us pretty quickly. But it didn't with them at all.
Although worried about the lack of payments, IQ Graphics wanted to keep doing business with the fleet.
And it was always guaranteed we will pay for sure. But also, for a small business, you don't want to ruin the relationship with such a big account by threatening them. That's not, how, I want to do business in general. Because I want to continue doing work with them.
Then news came of the fleet's parent league, the Alliance of American Football, suspending operations.
And I'm like, what happened? What's going on? And he's just, I don't know, I'm sorry. And that's when I knew that they're not going to pay.
IQ Graphics wasn't paid much for their work.
We did business about $23,000, and they owe us $22,000, roughly. It's massive because we are a small operation. We're a mom and pop shop. We have 4 employees. My biggest thing is we pay our vendors, we pay our employees for a service that I provide, they do for me, and I expected that back from them, and they just didn't. It's really unfortunate because I thought it was going to be great for the city. I thought it was great for us, as a small business. So.
Razai loved working with the fleet, but feels left behind and is genuinely hurt.
My dad is very old-fashioned, and he believes in people and trusts people. And the 23 years, I don't have one person not come and pay us back.
Now IQ Graphics is trying to recoup its losses.
We have to increase our pricings. We have to just try to find a way to fix this issue. And, our salaries are going down for my father and I.
Razai says he's reached out multiple times to league contacts about getting paid. He's also talking to a lawyer and weighing his legal options. Matt Hoffman, Kpbs News.
After suspending operations, the league says it's committed to working on solutions for all outstanding issues to the best of its ability. Despite being legal in California, people in the marijuana business still have hurdles to jump over. Even after the passage of Proposition 64, many local governments have been reluctant to issue business licenses for cannabis dispensaries. Lawmakers are working on a bill that would require local jurisdictions to issue a minimum number of cannabis licenses if more than 50% of residents voted in favor of Prop 64.
For those jurisdictions that pass Prop 64, that they should issue these permits. If they want to not issue the permits, they should ask the voters to speak again, not the elected officials, not the representatives who unfortunately are being subject to a very vocal minority.
The bill would require local governments to approve 1 cannabis retail license for every 4 liquor licenses. Uncertainty for hundreds of Central Americans in Mexico as they seek asylum in the U.S. The White House has appealed a federal judge's order to end the Return to Mexico program. Kpbs border reporter Jean Guerrero explains.
The federal judge said the U.S. can't send asylum seekers back to a country where they aren't safe. But the White House has appealed, saying the program is necessary for an overwhelmed asylum system. Attorney Robin Bernard says one of her clients was a named plaintiff in the lawsuit. She expects him to return to the U.S. Friday unless a stay is placed on the judge's decision. The White House's initial appeal hasn't yet asked for a stay. She says her clients would prefer to be detained in the U.S. than be out of custody in Mexico.
Mexico, they've been sick and scared, and it's been a very difficult period of time for them.
The Trump administration says the Return to Mexico program disincentivizes fraudulent claims. Jean Guerrero, Kpbs News.
Thanks, Jean. A San Diego researcher says a pesticide marketed as being safe for bees may be still putting the winged pollinators at risk. Kpbs reporter Eric Anderson explains.
Some of California's most widely used pesticides, neonicotinoids, are effective against a wide variety of pests, but it's also known that they are harmful to bees. Savanto is considered a next-generation product that doesn't expose bees to the same threat. It's been used since 2014. But UC San Diego researcher James Nye says research developed in his lab shows a different outcome when the pesticide is applied at the same time as other chemicals that control fungi.
This fungicide with flupyridiferone, Savanto, which is sold as Bee Safe, together they can actually significantly increase bees' death and also their abnormal behaviors.
Nye and his fellow researchers tracked the behavior of bees that have been exposed to the chemical cocktails. You can see in this video recorded in the lab that the bees had a range of abnormal behavior that included hyperactivity and apathy. Nye says their findings may not have been observed by regulators because they only test in-hive bees, and there's a more pronounced impact on foragers outside of the hive. Nye says the abnormal behavior hurts the hive.
They work together, in this case, to kind of build a cluster that in a normal situation they would eventually develop a comb and start building their colony. They require a lot of coordination and communication, and all of these things can be disrupted. Specifically, if they're just running around like crazy, uncoordinated, falling down, they're not able to go about their normal life in the colony.
Nye says he is cautious about anything that considers itself a silver bullet, something that gets rid of a harmful pest but protects everything else. The findings of his work are published in the latest edition of the Proceedings of the Royal Society. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
It's tax season with the deadline to file your federal taxes just days away. So here to help us answer the last-minute tax questions we may have is a Southern California IRS spokesperson, Rafael Tellino. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So this is the first tax season since the new tax reform plan has been rolled out. What are the biggest changes?
Oh, so many. Fundamentally, we saw taxes change. The 1040 form has changed. There's 6 new schedules. The 1040A and EZ, familiar forms to a lot of people, they've been eliminated. But as to what's provisions themselves, individuals and businesses, the standard deduction has been nearly doubled. Personal exemptions have been suspended, if you will, or eliminated, at least until Congress addresses them, because this law is in place at least until 2025. You're talking about modified deductions and credits all over the place, really. Tax rates reduced a little bit. Business changes as well. I mean, so many provisions, individual and businesses, that are affecting everybody in some way, shape, or form on your return, that you're going to see some kind of difference versus previous years.
And there's been a lot of talk about the changes to charitable donations. Can you explain what change was made there?
Well, on a schedule, look, if you want to take a charitable contribution and see a tax benefit on a tax return, you have to be itemizing on a Schedule A, because that's where it goes. But if the standard deduction has been doubled and you take the standard instead of the itemized, then really you're not going to find a tax benefit, because you want to take the greater of your itemized and your standard deduction that you get for filing and your filing status. And what's happening is, because the standard's been doubled so much, increased so much, and almost doubled, a lot of folks, when they make those charitable contributions, they're not really seeing the benefit, but in essence maybe they are, because the standard's been doubled. In other words, that's where it goes. On a Schedule A is where you see your charitable. So I've read some stories where a lot of folks, in light of this law, might be bunching. Maybe you itemize next year. Maybe you take a year and take all those contributions and do it in another year. But we'll see how the effect goes going forward with the new law based on the standard and some of the changes on the Schedule A.
And for personal taxes, who should be itemizing?
Well, no matter who you are, you get a filing status, right? You take the bigger number. So I should be itemizing if my number, if I'm married filing joint, it's $24,000 married filing joint in terms of the standard deduction, right? I'm itemizing, theoretically, if it's $1 more on my Schedule A. Schedule A includes property taxes, mortgage, that kind of thing, medical, dental, the charitable contributions, that kind of thing. All those add up to more than the standard. I'm taking the standard because I want to reduce the taxes I pay as much as I can.
So some people think that if you itemize, you increase your chances of being audited. Is that true?
No. It's the information on the return itself, not necessarily if you itemize or not, or choose a different schedule or not. The information on the return is honest and accurate, no matter what's on there. If it's a reflection of you based on your situation, it should be fine.
The deadline is just days away, Monday. So who should file for an extension?
Anybody who anybody who can't get it together, so to speak. So we don't take a stance and say you should file at this time. We basically say file when you're ready. If you can't get it done, you don't want to file an inaccurate return out of haste. So take your time, take the extra 6 months if you need it. It's easy to request it, it's automatic. Here's the thing about it though, it's an extension of time to file and not to pay. So if you owe or you think you owe, then the deadline is still this Monday. That way you avoid any penalties and interest that can accrue on your account. And if you have a requirement to file and you can't full pay, let's work something out, file a return, pay something. work it out going forward, because the penalty for having a requirement to file and not filing is much greater than filing and not full paying.
And we live in sunny San Diego, which is known for being expensive. A lot of people may take on a second job or have a side gig. Yeah. What should people know if they're freelancing or doing these side gigs as far as when it comes to filing their federal taxes?
Yeah, good call, because a lot of folks should make quarterly estimated tax payments if you are a gig economy or a shared economy worker, 1099, independent contractor. Okay, so basically taxes are pay as you go. That's why when you're a salaried employee, you have money withheld, right? And most of us are, that's why we get a refund. Different story, right? But if you're not making, you don't have that going in to the government automatically, you should be paying those taxes 4 times a year with quarterly estimated tax payments. And those are easy to do. You can do electronically, but good idea to keep current, because what happens is you get to file the return and you realize, oh boy, I got a big balance due. I didn't take care of business throughout the whole year. I'm under withheld. There's a penalty for that, although there is some relief available based on the new law. But the bottom line is you should stay current. Quarterly estimated tax payments are the way to go. Rafael
Tellino, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
This weekend is all about flowers, whether it's the floral arrangements at the Art Alive or flower crowns at Coachella. Plus, NPR's radio program From the Top is in town for a live taping. KPBS arts editor Nina Guerin shows us what we can expect.
Spring in San Diego is synonymous with Art Alive, a fundraiser that fills the San Diego Museum of Art with thousands of plants and flowers. At this 38th annual event, florists create elaborate arrangements inspired by paintings, sculptures, and objects in the museum's permanent collection. Your $25 admission serves as a donation to the museum, plus grants you access to the exhibit and events like a flower crown workshop and the kid-friendly Garden of Activities. Art Alive kicks off with a Bloom Bash, a chic 21 and over party with live music, food, cocktails, dancing, and even a Ferris wheel. From the Top is a weekly music show on NPR that spotlights young, classically trained musicians. This weekend, there will be a live taping from Conrad's new Baker Baum Concert Hall. The concert will spotlight musicians from the San Diego Youth Symphony Chamber Orchestra, and the group will perform selections by Chopin and Kabalevsky's Comedian Suite, originally written for children's theater. The La Jolla taping will be hosted by violinist Vijay Gupta, a MacArthur Genius Fellow who brings classical music to homeless and poverty-stricken areas. Finally, get ready for your Instagram feed to be filled with photos of pink sunsets, flower crowns, and stylish people, because Coachella kicks off this weekend. About 20% of the music festival attendees come from San Diego. And this year, there will be high-profile sets by Ariana Grande, Childish Gambino, Janelle Monáe, Tame Impala, Weezer, and so many more. Tickets for the first weekend are sold out, but you can still find passes for Coachella's second weekend, April 19 and 20. And don't forget, you can stay home and watch the concerts without crowds or sunburns on YouTube's Coachella channel. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
Scientist Fran De La Wall has been studying primates for more than 40 years. He has tracked and documented their social behavior from acts of cooperation to fierce power struggles. An embrace shared between his mentor and elderly chimp inspired him to write about emotions in the animal world. His book, Mama's Last Hug, takes a look at how emotions have evolved across species and helped them survive. KQED Marissa Lagos spoke with the author.
Professor Fran De La Wall, thank you so much for coming in. So you center this book around a chimpanzee named Mama, who was the matriarch of a group of apes at a zoo, and specifically Mama's goodbye with somebody who had studied her for a very long time. Can you talk about why you chose Mama specifically and why you use this interaction?
Well, Mama was the central figure of that colony. It's a very large colony on an island, like 25 chimps. And she was the sort of central figure who kept the group together. And actually, we're noticing now, she has died 2 years ago, that there's some turmoil in the group, really? I think, as a result of her absence. So she was the mediator. She was very powerful. She was not necessarily physically dominant over the males, but she was a very powerful figure. And when she died, she was so important to everyone. I think that my professor, Jan van Hoof, who was 80 at the time, and she was 59, which is also very old for a chimpanzee. he decided to go into her night cage to visit her, which normally we never do because it's a very dangerous thing to do. But she was so weakened, and he had known her for 40 years, and so he went in, and she had a very emotional exchange with him, and she embraced him and all of that. And what struck me, because this was shown on Dutch national TV and all of this, how surprised people were. So that people were moved by it, I can understand. Everyone was moved by that video clip. But they were surprised how human-like her expression was and her gestures. And I thought, well, we all know that chimps are our closest relatives, so why would you be surprised that they express their emotions in similar ways? And so that's why I decided to take that as the beginning story, basically.
One of the really wonderful examples is of another female chimp at the same zoo who was couldn't lactate, couldn't feed the babies. And you had an interaction and taught her something that really changed. Can you just tell us about that?
Yeah, this is a female named Kuif, and we decided after she had lost 2 or 3 offspring, and she had always deep depressions, and she would cry and she would not eat. And so I decided at some point, since we had a baby up for adoption, a baby chimp, to teach her how to bottle feed it. And for a chimp is a tool user, so to hold a bottle in a baby is really no big deal for them, just so there's no big deal for humans. And so we taught her how to do that. And since that time, because before she was a bit obnoxious to me sometimes, but since that time she really loved me and I'm part of the family. And she was grateful for the rest of her life because she also raised her own offspring on the bottle as a result of this.
So a lot of the book seems to center around debunking assumptions, things that people think animals cannot do. And you have some pretty specific examples of how, you know, your observations have run counter to that.
Yeah, so one of the things people think is that animals are slaves of their emotions. They have to run after their emotions, have to just carry out the program. And that's not really true. The animals control their emotions. If a cat would go after a chipmunk as soon as it sees it, it will never catch the chipmunk. It has to control the impulses and then sneak up on it. And there's many examples. I don't know if you know the marshmallow test that we do as kids, for example, where you give them one marshmallow and they have to wait and then they get a second one. That same test has been done with apes, has been done with parrots, and they have just the same emotional control that we have. And so this idea that they are the slaves of emotions doesn't really fit.
So I know sometimes we compare apes and primates to toddlers. It sounds like they've developed beyond sort of that stage of human existence.
I never liked those comparisons because an adult chimpanzee male is interested in power and sex, basically. That's not very childlike, I would say. And the adult females are very interested in the offspring and how to care for them. And so their interests don't really fit. And I think the whole psychology is different from those of the kids who play around and fool around.
So you've sort of built your life around this work. What's next? And what do you hope people are taking away from this?
Well, I think that the next phase is actually we do a lot more research on emotions because it has just started on the animals since we were not allowed to talk about it. In humans also. Actually, human emotions are often studied verbally. The people have questionnaires and they fill out their feeling states. I think human emotions also need to be studied more observationally and more focused on the face than what we're doing now.
All right, Professor Faulconer, thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
Cloud coverage is moving into San Diego County. Meteorologist Dajia Swad tells us what we can expect in the coming days.
As we continue through this evening, we're going to notice more clouds filling in for Southern California, and that includes us here in San Diego County. We're going to be tracking out a low pressure that is well to our north now, and that's where you see some rain entering Northern California, even getting some reports of rain and shower activity in towards Nevada. Now, this is due to, yes, a low pressure system, but in the upper levels, the upper level trough, that will continue to gain more strength and bring some more gusting winds as it moves into the area. You're looking at partly cloudy skies tonight here in San Diego with a low of 60. We move into your region. Going to be a bit on the cool side and the ocean side with a low of 48. 59 in Borrego Springs and 38 in Mount Laguna. As we head into Mount Laguna for the rest of this evening and tonight, we'll definitely be feeling windy conditions. Some gusts up to 45 miles per hour potentially, and we'll also notice the clouds as well. Those winds are out of the west, and as we head into tomorrow, going to be more out of the north. a cooler pocket of air into the higher ground for your Friday. Once again, we're tracking out this upper level disturbance, and that's where we're going to see a lot of shower activity in the southwest. Not going to see too much in the way of showers at the coast, but mostly in the higher grounds out towards your mountains. Some showers in the afternoon for tomorrow. Moving into your temperatures for your Friday. In the lower 70s for Oceanside as well as San Diego. Still a few clouds out there, especially in the morning hours. We're going to notice most of the low clouds, then sun to break through. 82 in Borrego Springs. 52 in Mount Laguna. And as we continue into your weekend, that disturbance presses its way into the middle of the country, where we'll be talking about a variety of precipitation, but also some strong to severe storms likely into the Mississippi Valley. We'll be dry here at home, which is never a bad thing, and always also feeling a bit warmer for the weekend before we get another cool down as we track out another disturbance. So for tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, you're looking at highs in the 70s at the coast, then cooling down into the 60s for your early week. Inland areas also feeling that warm up for the weekend and slightly cooler for the early week with dry conditions persisting. Deserts in the 80s for the next several days, and we'll be in the 60s for Sunday, still feeling cool and breezy conditions into the mountains as you head for your Monday forecast. Reporting for Kpbs News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
Adela de la Torre was inaugurated today as the 9th president of San Diego State University. De la Torre is the first female and first Latina president appointed on a permanent basis at San Diego State University. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.